Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Perry. I'm actually the career counselor for the Beaver College of Health Sciences. And today we are going to talk about applying to grad school. And I've got a couple special guests with me today. I can't tell which way, if you're on my left or right, Nani. So I'm just going to say next to me is Nani Ellis. And I'm going to let Nani introduce herself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nani Ellis. I went through the Student Affairs Administration Master's Program at App State. I am from the 2019 cohort, so I just finished my master's, I guess, a year ago, a little over a year ago. So I'm currently working at Queen's University in our Center for Student Success.
All right. And next we have Miss Angie Daughery. She is Associate Director of Financial Aid. Angie, I can't remember. You've gotten promoted so many times. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Right now, I'm currently the interim associate director for financial aid for processing for data management. So yeah, that's what I do. It's a big long title with a whole lot of work. And I have been at Appalachian for almost 13 years. I also graduated through the master's program. And worked full-time, as we were just discussing about that earlier.
We are 2017 grads of App State.
2017, yes,
Master's
2017.
program.
Yeah.
All right.
Happy that everybody can be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. So we're going to talk a little bit about the grad school resume to start with, because as the career coach for Beaver College, I do a lot of different resumes. The resume that you're going to use for your graduate program is slightly different from a resume that you're going to use for your regular job search. In many ways, the resume is going to highlight and add to your application packet for graduate school. It's a way to highlight some of the things that are not as necessary on a resume for a job, such things as your involvement within your school, the different organizations, clubs, the different things that you did, volunteer work that you've done. You really want to extrapolate out on those different items and kind of give a feeling of what it was you were doing, what you learned, what experiences you had. So the resume, it does not have to be one page, but if it's going to go more than one page, every single piece of information on that page needs to be relevant and pertaining to yourself and your degree and your program and all that stuff. You don't want fluff, and please do not put fluff on your resume because we can tell. So the really important things with resumes, as we always talk about, is balance on that page. Make sure you're maximizing the white spaces and keeping it balanced and easy to read so that it's not all over the place. You want a simple format resume, again, because it does make it a little easier for people to read. Sometimes the really highly formatted ones, they look really great, but they're hard to process information quickly. And I know with a resume that's for a job, you've got 20 seconds on average. Now we're hoping in a graduate program, they're going to spend a little bit more time, right? But they really want to see, how are you going to add to their cohort? How are you going to add to their class? What are you going to bring to the university? So that resume needs to be really tight and efficient, just like it would be for a job. But you can also put your research, any research that you've done as an undergrad needs to go on that resume. Any special projects you've done with faculty or things that you've been selected to do, through your department. Those are the kind of things you want to highlight on that graduate resume. And as I always suggest, make an appointment with your career coach through Handshake, and we can absolutely help you with that. And then next, and then let's see if Nani or Angie have any comments about the graduate resume.
Yeah. So I can definitely comment on a few things. When I was getting my materials ready and applying for graduate school, I was really involved in undergrad. So I really had to think and hone in on, okay, what do I want to add on here? I'm applying for the Student Affairs Administration Master's Program. So what experiences have I done as an undergraduate student that are kind of relatable, and what skills are transferable that I can bring to this program? So I was a resident assistant, so I thought about some of the administrative duties that came with that. I thought about, being an RA, I had to deal with crisis management. I felt like that was very relevant. So I picked a couple of different points that I felt like were relatable to the master's program. And then I also thought about, being a part of a historically Black sorority. I wanted to make sure I put that on there because that was something that was important to me. And there's a lot that goes into that organization. And then just I guess, my ability to work with my residents, because in my master's program, we were cohort style. So I wanted to also highlight that I can work on a team, right? I can work on a team, but I could also work by myself. But I also leaned on my team where they were stronger in areas that I wasn't stronger in. So those were some of the things that I really focused on, because I didn't want to get too crazy with my resume, because I felt like some of the experiences that I had, they weren't as relevant. Even though, you know, they were important to me, they weren't as relevant. And, you know, like Jennifer said, you don't want to just put all this random stuff on there. You want to make sure that it's meaningful information. So.
As non-traditional students, both Angie and I used our regular work resumes when we applied for our graduate program, because by the time I had applied, I had been out of school for so long that those sort of extracurriculars were not as important. But what was important were the organizations and clubs we belonged to through our different careers, right? At the time, we were both in financial aid, so we belonged to the financial aid groups in the Southeast, on the East Coast, all these different ones, and then the national ones. And students can do that too, regardless of, you know, you may belong to an association with your employer or your type of employment, or there may be an association you belong to because that's just a passion of yours. Again, those are good things to put on there because they're trying to get a holistic picture of who you are, and your grades and your test scores, they really don't give a full picture. And then, which leads us into the other item that they submit with a graduate application, which is the graduate, it's called a graduate essay. Sometimes it's called a statement of purpose. Sometimes it's called a statement of intent. And sometimes it is called a personal statement. Now, sometimes the statement of purpose, statement of intent tends to be a little bit more focused on the reasons you're applying for that particular program, and tends to be a part of the general overall personal statement, unless they ask for it specifically. Now we have at App State the link that you can use to see all of the prompts for every single graduate program before you even have to submit your application, so you have an understanding of what they're going to be looking for. So that's really important to do, and you can find that under the graduate school under helpful links. It's right there, and we will put a link at the end of this video as well for you guys to find. But what's really important about the personal statement is this is your opportunity to put a narrative voice as to who you are and what you're bringing to this university. And so a lot of that graduate statement is you talking about, you know, who you are and letting them get to know your personality, what those strengths are. You want your reasons for applying also to this organization. You want to understand how those 4 years of undergraduate experience and transferable skills and all those educational experiences that you've had have helped highlight and inform your decision to move on to a master's program. So it's interesting to see, help students write these when I wrote mine several years ago. And I hadn't written one since my undergrad, which was literally 25 years before. But I did, I focused on the work that I had been doing and the work that I wanted to continue to do, so they understood what my passions were and why it was important for me to get into this program. So let's turn to Nani, and then we'll turn to Angie to see if she's got any hints or tricks that you guys can think of.
Yeah, I feel like you really, you really covered that. But the thing that I will say is I really, really did focus on my passion areas. And I also focused on what that program was exactly what I wanted, because I wanted a program that was going to be theory to practice. And I had spent 2 years working in higher education before coming back for my master's degree. So I knew the areas where I needed to work on, and I felt like that the master's program that I was applying to was going to give that to me. So I made sure that I stressed that, you know, not only am I contributing something to this program, but I'm also getting something from it as well. So I really got personal. I talked about, you know, some of my challenges, some of my struggles, some of my background, because I feel like a lot of that kind of defines who I am, and it made me who I am. And it kind of is a foundation for where I'm trying to go next. So I really got personal with it because it gave me an opportunity to do that, right? The personal statement, not only did it give me prompts with, you know, questions I needed to answer, but it also gave me an opportunity to, you know, get personal and really, you know, let them know who I am and why I really want this program. So.
Exactly. It's funny because sometimes it is a little bit of the past, a little bit of the present, and a little bit of the future, right? What makes you interested in this particular degree program?
Yes.
How has your education and experience helped you come to this understanding? What do you want to do with it in the future? So it's very important to kind of, when you're talking about those experiences that you're having, sometimes it's hard not to put out everything, right?
Yes.
Yes. And so it's really hard to kind of tailor it down. Now, sometimes they're going to give you a word count, 1,000 words. Sometimes they're not, but you still don't want to make it too long because they have to read it, right? And they read a lot of these. So a lot of times you say, focus on one or two great sort of exemplative scenarios, right? That you think really kind of sort of correlate all those different things about you, those nuances that you can talk about in relation to all these other different things. But also there too is that Nani talked about, the opportunities, the challenges that she's facing. Sometimes in the prompts, they will ask you to discuss strengths and weaknesses. And we're pretty comfortable with our strengths. I think as a general rule, we don't think sometimes to take a step back and think about those things that we need to work on. And that's why I don't like the word weaknesses, because if we have identified something within ourselves that we think, oh, this is something I could definitely work on, there's an opportunity for growth, right? An absolute opportunity for growth. I worked in a financial aid office. I hated giving presentations. It was an absolute opportunity for growth. But after a while, you do enough of them, experience builds confidence, and it gets easier. So that was an opportunity for growth for that one point, but now it's not. But so you want to think, when you're thinking about those opportunities for growth, a lot of people say that they tend to be a perfectionist. I see that a lot. So you really want to think a little bit more deeply on what it is that you may need to work on, right? Sometimes it's confidence levels. Sometimes it's that imposter syndrome where you feel like, I don't know if I really actually do belong here. We've all felt that. And sometimes that is, in many ways, an opportunity for growth, because if you can sort of get feel confident enough to keep going, you'll eventually, that experience will help you move through that. And I see Nani and Angie both nodding their heads, right?
Yeah.
So it shows self-awareness. And so when you talk about your opportunities for growth, you're showing self-awareness. You do not want to slam yourself, and you always want to give the steps you're taking to mitigate any opportunities for growth, like the ways that you're trying to improve that situation. Then yes, then you absolutely want to talk about those. That makes sense, but definitely focus on your strengths. But if they ask for weaknesses, you need to be honest and candid.
Yeah. The other thing, I just wanted to add one more thing. The same way that you have, a team of people or a couple of people that you reach out to look at your resume or write your recommendation letters or what have you. I think it's the same thing for your personal statement. Identify a couple of people to read over it. I am not the strongest writer. So I reached out to some of my mentors, and they helped me because I think that I had so much going on. I had so much I wanted to talk about, but I couldn't talk about everything. So I had folks around me, support, my mentors and stuff to help me narrow it down. Right. So I encourage you all to, think about a couple of people that you feel comfortable with and sharing your documents with them and having them give you some feedback on it.
Angie and I can talk about that, right?
Yes, definitely. That is good.
We have a very dear friend who's like the punctuation and grammar queen, and she read every single one of our papers and we gave her an honorary degree when we graduated because she did. But we do have a writing center here at the Appalachian, that can help you with the grammar and that sort of thing. I can help you with content. I can help you sort of get those thoughts out of your head. And did you guys remember when you wrote your graduate essay, did you find it easier just to kind of write it and get it all done and then go back and start editing?
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Get it out of your head.
Just throw it.
Yeah,
throw
and
everything
just get it out.
there.
And then you can start picking and choosing which ones are appropriate, which ones are better. And you're going to have to start editing out those extra words.
Mm-hmm.
All those qualifiers that we do as a general rule when we're not feeling as confident about our writing, you're going to have to, because if it does have a word limit, you don't want to waste. You want efficient use of the language. So again, make an appointment with your career coach and we can help you with this stuff. But other things you want to talk to about in the graduate or the personal essay or personal statement is if there is something that you're marginal on as far as the admissions requirements. This is your opportunity to bring this up and discuss it. and in such a way that you can add to your, ability to get into the program, because they understand that things happen. And I think spring 2020 is going to show up in a lot of people's essays, right? Because so things happen and they understand that. And so sometimes GPA is not reflective of someone's effort and work. And sometimes a GRE is not reflective of somebody's abilities because I don't take tests well, right? But the essay is a writing sample, first of all, so it better be tight and perfect. Same with the resume, right? Absolutely perfect, flawless, no mistakes. So you've got that to work with. You also, you can tell them exactly what the situation was and why it impacts and why you think you're a great candidate. And so I think it's very important to think about that. And I love Nani's advice. Yes, you have friends and family and mentors and people who care about you and know you. You can ask them to read your papers and see if they get a good feel of who you are from what you're writing, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you're not careful, you could get the wrong impression altogether because of just the words that you've chosen. And one example I can think of is I had a student, when we were reading her essay, I circled passion 10 times on the first page, right? She was very passionate. And she was so upset because I'm like, no, your passion comes through. We just need to figure out another way to kind of articulate it. And so that's going to happen. But it's also, you're going to get stuck and you're going to think, just keep working on it. The personal essay can be fun once you kind of weed it down to its basic elements and you pick out those things that are really important to you and that you want to highlight. I think there's and also be an authentic voice.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
You want to follow up on that one?
That was my thought. No, that was my thought. I am a very transparent person, right? And sometimes I can be too transparent, but I didn't want to be in a place that wasn't for me. You know what I mean? So when I was going through my interviews, when I was doing my personal statement, I even called the director of the program because I knew that I wasn't a strong test taker and we had to take the SATs when I was applying. Not the SATs, the GREs.
GREs, yeah.
The GREs when I was applying, and I was like, I know that I'm not going to really do well in this. So I called her up. I told her about my situation, and that really helped. That really in that moment, she really solidified in that moment that this is the program for me, right? This is the program for me because I told her, I said, hey, I really want to do this, but I'm not really a good test taker. I'm a little discouraged. Should I still apply? Is there even a chance that I could get in? So I was really real and transparent about, the challenges and the struggles that I was facing. So yes, I would say be who you are and own that, right? You'd never want to be in a place like, even when I was interviewing for positions, I was very just me, right? I was me because I don't want to ever be in a place that's not for me, right?
No,
not for me. It's not good for you and it's not good for them, right? So I wanted to make sure that we had an equal understanding when I was doing the program. I know I kind of went all over, but
no, that is so important.
Authenticity piece is everything. It's everything.
Because you want the program that's going to work for you. You want the program that's going to have the same highlighted interests that you have, that's going to focus on things that you're passionate about. And every program is going to have a slightly different bent depending on their faculty and where their faculty's research takes them. And so it's really important to sort of think these things through as you're speaking, because you're interviewing that school as much as they're interviewing you. Everyone tends to think, oh, no, I'm trying to get in. No, they're trying to get students as well. So you need to keep that in mind. Because I know Angie and my experience was different. We did not want to take that GRE, right? I hadn't been in school in 25 years. And so we both went down and we talked to the graduate school and we're like, please don't make me take. But it's okay because the graduate school said, no, you've got this much professional experience. Your GPAs and your undergrad were, you could take the MAT, which is a slightly different test. You can't really study for it, which I think was our biggest issue because we were working, full time and we didn't have enough time because we were also taking graduate classes as non-degree students first and then transferred them into our degree program. You can do that with up to 3. And so that was the reasons, but Angie can attest that we were very pleased not to have to take the GRE, and they were very encouraging to us too, which I thought was really nice because I did not do the student affairs and leadership one that Nani did. We did the higher education leadership, which is more whereas student affairs is, you guys have a lot more daytime classes. I think it's a very, very inclusive and great program. The higher education ones, the classes tend to be a little bit more in the evening for full-time working professionals can hit. So I think sometimes there's a difference between the two programs, but they both have great pieces of both. So Can
I add a comment on something? You said, you're interviewing that school just as much as they're interviewing you. And I would just say, as you're going through this process, make sure you do your research and you are familiar with the program. So like you mentioned, the Student Affairs Administration program, like I said, it's more theory to practice. You're in your assistantship a lot, so you're getting a lot of hands-on experience. The classes are during the day. It's cohort style, so I'm going through all of my classes with the same 16 other people. So just make sure you do your research, and then when you go and you are interviewing, that you have questions prepared. If there's information you can't find on the website, or as you're talking to people via email, write some questions down, and just come prepared, because that also shows that you're really interested in learning about the program. So
thank you. That's a really good point, having questions prepared in advance. And it's absolutely fine to bring a notebook into an interview. I think because sometimes when you are nervous and they say, do you have any questions for us? And your brain just, it's just much easier to open your notebook and say, yes, I do. And there's nothing wrong with that. It shows you're prepared. And if you're not 100% sure what to ask them what they like most about their program. Ask them where most of their graduates end up working, right? What are the biggest challenges that they've seen new graduates face within their program? I would just say, if you're going to ask that question, be careful, because a good interviewer can turn it around and say, I don't know, what do you think your biggest challenge will be? So anything that you're going to ask, be prepared to answer just in case, and do your research, like Nani said, because do not ask questions that are easily available on the website, because it shows that you did not do a modicum of research. You can also check out the faculty and staff that are going to interview you and read their bios and see, where they're from, where their undergraduate was, what their research is focused on. And these are things you should know, because it'll impact the way that they teach the courses and their focus on the different courses. Yeah. Okay. I know it's funny, we brought up the GRE, and Angie, can you talk a little bit about, do we still do GRE waivers for students who are eligible?
Yes, we do. We have those. It's a good question. Now that we're virtual, I'm not sure what the process is to actually get those, but contact the financial aid office. There is a deadline for those, I think, and there's also income limits and stuff for that. But contact the financial aid office if you're interested in those waivers, and someone will help you.
Yeah, and they can help you with that and hopefully help you save some costs. And you can also reach out to testing at App State, and they'll tell you when all these test dates are and all those things, so you can start making your plans. Because you will want to study for the GRE.
Yes.
It's just something you'll want to do. And even the Miller's MAT, you're going to want to familiarize yourself with the process of it so that you can do your very best. Okay, I wanted to make sure we covered that. So let's talk about some of these funding models. If Nani, if you can talk a little bit about the GA positions and even how some of those things work, that would be lovely.
Yeah. So, thinking back, so when I was applying for the master's program, the way that my program was set up, which was the Student Affairs Administration program, College Student Development, we had to actually be hired as a GA before we could be admitted into the master's program. So I had to come and I had to interview with all these different offices. So I interviewed specifically with Multicultural Student Development, MSD. I also interviewed with, I think it was our Women's Center at App, Conduct, and a couple of other offices that I was interested in. And I got my first, and then we had to rank our interests, right? So I really wanted to work in student conduct. That's what my background was in. That's what I was most familiar with. That's where I wanted to learn and grow more. That's the area I wanted to learn and grow more in. So I really, really wanted the student conduct GA position. So, which I got, it was my first choice, and I was lucky enough to get it. In that assistantship, they covered, I worked 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week. I worked 20 hours a week, and I received an out-of-state tuition award. So I didn't have to pay like out-of-state tuition. I paid in-state tuition, but with my assistantship, they covered that. So I had to get the assistantship, I had to work the hours, and then I received a stipend. So I received a stipend every 2 weeks, and then I also got my tuition covered. So that's how it worked for me. Sorry, I had to think back a little bit. I'm like, why did that? Okay. Yes, that's how that worked for me. But I guess to other offices, other assistantships might do it a little bit different, but that's just the way that it worked for me, which helped a lot. So
yeah, having not paying out-of-state tuition and having a guaranteed kind of little bit of trickle income coming in helps, right? Because you're all going to have incidentals, right?
Yeah.
And financing these things can be challenging, as we all know. So even as a a full-time employee, the university would pay for one of my classes per term, but you still have purchase of books and all those other things that you're going to have to get, and the books aren't rented like they are for the undergraduates here at App. So it can be a little pricey. So it's really important to do your homework and to figure these things out.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think also too, it's very important to research each individual school and the way that they do handle their GA positions and their fellowships and all that stuff, to make sure that you hit all the deadlines and you're eligible for all the things that you can be eligible for. Because each school is going to have slightly different funding models. I used to work for a private school in DC, the George Washington University. We had tons of money. We had tons of gift money. We had a huge endowment. Working for a state school, we do not. There is no money. There is no slush fund of money that's sitting around that we can give out. And when I say we, I used to work in the financial aid office. It's just harder at a state school. There isn't that sort of loose funding around. So sometimes your bigger end private schools may actually have more funding than a state school. So you have to make smart decisions about where you're going to go. And that's why it's always good to apply to, do a stretch school, and do a couple others that you might not have thought you'd get into, and then do the ones you're interested in that you think you can get into, and then maybe a safety school, maybe one, just in case. But I do absolutely say stretch yourself. And sometimes, like I said, the George Washington University had a lot bigger funding available for students, and same with Georgetown, because that was right down the street. So again, sometimes it's counterintuitive, but you have to sort of make these decisions. So next I'm going to pass it off to Ms. Angie. And she's going to talk about some of the federal programs that are available to students and some of the things that are exclusive to App in North Carolina. And you can pipe in whenever we want.
Yes, feel free to pipe in anytime.
You know me.
Yes, I do. Okay, so the first thing for financial aid is to do the Fafsa, and you probably did that as an undergrad, but there is funding available through the Fafsa. It opens the October 1st of every year. So if you're planning to attend a graduate school in 21, 22, that's so hard to say. I can't.
Fall of 21. Yeah.
Yes, fall of 21 or spring of 22 or summer of 22, you will need to do your FAFSA now. And since you will be a grad student at that time, you're considered an independent student. So all the information is just going to be yours unless you're married. If you're married, you will include your spouse. And if you have children, you include those too. But you do not include your parents on this one. This is all you. And just like the undergrad, they come up with an expected family contribution for you. It is used for budgeting purposes more in graduate school than for need-based aid. However, we do use that figure. But as far as funding goes, there's federal funding. Up to $20,500 is what a graduate student can receive in unsubsidized loans per year. And there's not any subsidized loans like there was in undergrad. So unfortunately, it's all unsubsidized. If you have need, there are some state funds possibly available, maybe some institutional funding, and we determine that when we get your FAFSA, once you're admitted to the program. So keep in mind, we'll we'll have your FAFSA on file, but we won't actually award or do anything to that until you're admitted into the program. So sometimes that can take a little while. The state offers some programs where it's forgivable education loans for service. We call it FAIL.
Mouthful. They call it
yeah,
FELS.
it is a mouthful.
Yeah, they call it
It is a
FELS,
mouthful.
but it's Forgivable Education Loans for Service.
And it's a very good program if you know what you want. And as a master's candidate, you probably do know what area you're going into. But
why master's students are given priority over undergraduate students for this particular funding, and also PhD candidates. So
yes, you can do it for your doctoral too. For masters, it's up to $10,000 a year. For doctoral, I think it's $14,000.
$14,000.
Yeah.
There are some undergraduate ones as well, but those are a little bit more targeted towards nursing and education. But you can check the link out for those as well. But most
there is a link. The state decides each year which programs that we need people in. So those are the programs that they use this money for. So if you're going into one of those programs, then definitely apply. The deadline for this program is March 1st. There's an application for it. You have to work in North Carolina, agree to work in North Carolina in one of the critical shortage areas once you graduate.
Yeah, in your degree program, yeah.
Yeah, in that degree program. You have to go at least half time, 6 hours to keep the FELS. And the way that it's paid back is once you graduate, you get a job in North Carolina, and for each year that you work, it's a year of forgiveness. So, I mean, if you're going into a nursing program or something like that, it would be great. I mean, that's significant. So,
well, and most master's programs are only 2 years.
2 years, right? Yeah.
And so if you work in the state of North Carolina within some sort of public entity within your degree program, which we would hope you'd want to, right? Because that's why you got the degree, then you still get your benefits and you still get your salary, and it just wipes away that debt in 2 years, right? So it's something definitely to consider. And I just want to say this because I am the career coach and the liaison to the Beaver College of Health Sciences, that several of these programs are targeted towards education, masters in education, things like that, but they also have masters in nursing, occupational therapy, PhD in physical therapy, speech language pathology, audiology, social work, clinical mental health counseling, career counseling is another one. So if you go to the cfnc.org/FELS, which is the link because it's College Foundation North Carolina, there's 2 PDFs, eligible programs, which tells you all the eligible programs that are can receive funding. And it also tells you eligible institutions. And North Carolina school, you also have to be a North Carolina resident for tuition purposes in order to get these scholarships and grants, because they are designed to get North Carolina students into North Carolina programs that will benefit the state of North Carolina for, they call it critical need employment, I think is what they call it.
Right.
So very, very interesting program. So I wanted to make sure that was very clear, and I wanted to I thank you, Angie, for bringing that up. And what else should they know, Angie?
They also have some scholarships on their website, so definitely check out CFNC for that. There are some scholarships for graduate students. Institutional money, as Jennifer said, we are a state school, so there's not usually a lot of that, but we do have an Appalachian College Opportunity Grant. This year's the first year that we have given it to graduate students under that name. So there are requirements for that. It was under something else, but under that name. So for that one, it can be up to $1,000 a year, and that one is prorated. So if you're not full-time, you would still get some if you're going half-time. There is a catch to that one, though. You do have to apply for your FAFSA before June 1st of 2021 in order to qualify for that for the 21-22 academic year, and also your expected family contribution has to be below 7,000. So it's a need-based.
So, yeah, Angie, if they're going to file their FAFSA now, they can choose up to 10 schools. They don't need to know where they're going, correct?
Do not. Yes, you can put up to 10 schools on there, and so do it now.
Yeah, get it done. Because yeah, then you'll hit the deadline. Once you're admitted, they'll automatically start to process and tell you if you need anything. And I also want to make note too, is that most people moving directly from an undergraduate program to a graduate program probably didn't make a ton of money during that scene. So they would probably be eligible for some of these need-based grants. So it's really important for our students to take advantage of these opportunities by filing for them. And also it's, what was I going to say too about the need-based grants? I can't remember. I can't remember.
It'll come to you.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I'm not a financial aid person anymore, but I still think like a financial aid person. I think like Nani, who was working full-time and then started her graduate program. And that may not be an accurate reflection of her income level when she's in the program, because she's probably not going to be working full-time, especially in her program, because it was a cohort during the day. Right. So if you're in a situation where you're going back to school and you have been working full time, absolutely reach out to your financial aid office and see if there's something they can do to help you.
You guys are my best friends in financial aid. I'm so serious. I'm so serious.
Thank you. We don't get that a lot. No.
We don't get that. Well, I get it now, but in career development, but no, in financial aid, I didn't. You're right.
And Jennifer is right about that, because it's based on 2 years prior. So if your circumstances have changed, definitely check with us. There are, ways that we can help.
Yeah. So if you were making great money and then you lost your job and decided to go into a graduate program, which is probably happening now, talk to your financial aid office, because they can use your estimated income versus what you were earning before. It depends on the office. It depends on what you're gonna have to turn in by office. But absolutely reach out to your financial aid office, because if they don't know, they can't offer to help you.
Right.
That's true. There are also some departmental scholarships for graduate students. So check those. If you go to the graduate.appstate.edu and look under the prospective students, you'll see those listed. And so definitely check with any programs that you are interested in to see what scholarships are available, because they all have different eligibility requirements, but definitely look for scholarships. There's tons and tons out on the web too, so just be sure that it's a legit scholarship, but there are many ways to find money for school.
It's the one sure way to know that if it's a legit scholarship or not is you never ever should pay money to apply for a scholarship, ever.
That's the money we like.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes. You never pay money to get money or to apply for something. And the FAFSA is FAFSA.gov, right? Because you FAFSA.com, they're going to charge you. Yeah, so
and it's free.
Okay. Yes, and so if you are a member of an association, check that association to see if they offer scholarships. Do Google searches, check LinkedIn, check other alumni, in your program. Do they have any funding that's listed as something on their LinkedIn profile that you can see? You got to be somewhat creative, because funding gets tighter and tighter as the feds dry up state funding, and state funding dries up. The schools don't have it either. So some of the big privates, they still have some of it, but even the big privates are getting hits, because less money coming in means less money coming in. But you just got to do your research and be tenacious about it. And you're probably going to write a lot of essays. Scholarships.org, Angie, is that still a viable source?
Yes, I believe so.
I would say set your parameters, make sure it says graduate student, otherwise you're going to get a lot of emails for undergrad. And maybe even set up an email account that, you're not afraid of getting a few emails to for that one. Because if you don't set your parameters very tight, there's a lot of scholarships, there's a lot of little ones. And this one has been vetted by a financial aid professional. And he's made sure that they're all legit. So something to look into. Some are limited to just undergrad, some are limited to just grad, some are both. So really important. I'm still very passionate about financial aid, even though I'm in the career.
I see it coming out. It's coming out.
I did it for so long. It's like 13 years. It's like I can't get it out of my system. So I think we covered everything today. I think, is there any other advice that you guys can think of that we need to talk about for our students who are thinking about doing the graduate program? I could think, if you are working full-time, there are plenty of graduate programs that will cater to your full-time schedule so that you don't have to do a full-time program on top of a full-time work schedule. I know that App State offers several online graduate programs through main campus and through our distance education. So that is something to consider. There's a lot of different options, a lot of really interesting options out there. So do your research, and pick something that you can do research with ONET online to see what the need is. You don't want to pick a graduate program that in some years might be obsolete because of technology. So it's really important to see what the forecast is for these types of jobs. But other than that, yeah, just research, and go for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The only thing that I would add, I don't think we tend to think about when, you're applying to grad schools and if you're moving from out of state or you're just moving far away. I also did my research on the area, right? So it was really important for me to have a community outside of App State and a support system outside of App State. While I had one on campus, I needed to make sure that I had something outside of that bubble. So just do your research. I'm a Christian, so I really looked into, the churches that were in the area. Obviously, I'm Black, so I needed to know, where could I get my hair supplies? Where could I get my hair done? Things like that are really important to you that are around your culture or your race or whatever the case may be. Those things are all really important too, because that is a part of, it may not be exactly a part of your grad school, like educational experience, but it's still a part of your experience while you're there. And you want to have a good experience all around. So definitely do your research in the outside of that program as well too. So, and then when you're on campus, think about what you want your networks to be on campus. So I was really involved in MSD. So I was doing that, and then I created a sister circle. So I created my own organization. I noticed that there wasn't a lot for graduate students of color. So we created our own organization on campus. So those are some of the things that we tend to forget about, but they're important, right? So do your research around that as well.
Yes, if you've never lived in New York City, seriously think about whether I'd never lived in New York City and I went to school in New York City. I did fine, but after 2 years, I was like, I need to see the sun.
Yes.
Because in New York, you've got very tall buildings, and if the shadows are right, you'll never see the sun. And so I moved to DC because no buildings are allowed to be over 10 stories. You have a little bit more. But yeah, so you have to make good decisions because, yes, Boone is a very different community than my undergraduate, which was a downtown campus. And, I went to George Washington University and a school in New York City. So it's really important that is a very important thing to not thank you, because for everyone. But especially, yes, if you're, do you have a church that you feel comfortable going to? Are there activities outside of school that you feel comfortable going to and that you want to do? Like, if you don't like the outdoors, maybe Boone is not for you.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Because there's a lot of outdoor activities. Now, I'm not the biggest outdoor person, but I love living here. So there is a lot to offer. But again, you have to kind of research it and know, kind of like you would for a job, right? Yeah. Just like you wouldn't want to move. You don't agree to a job that you've never looked at and seen what the cost of living is. Because again, look at your financial aid, look at your thing. Can you afford to live in that city without working? Those are all considerations I want students to make. But graduate school has been so rewarding for me. I loved every minute of it. I took a little bit longer because I was doing it sort of 1 to 2 classes per semester because I was working full time. But I absolutely enjoyed all of my courses. And I do think it made a huge difference in the way that I do my work and the way that I interact with my students. So it's been a really great sort of learning, sort of taking my practical knowledge and kind of seeing how it applies with all the different theories and stuff. Yes, it was very well worth it. And we have some amazing programs. What about you, Ange?
I agree. I definitely agree. And as a non-traditional student that took 100 years almost to get to get a master's, I say go for it. I mean, I have no regrets about getting my master's, and it did take a long time, but I was out of school for undergrad for a very long time,
like over 25 years for me, and I was just under 50 when I finished. So my sister started her PA program in her 30s. right? So you never, it's never too late. Don't,
Never.
Don't make decisions based on age. Make decisions on what you think is the best thing for you to do. But
Right.
make good, strong decisions. Weigh out your pros and cons. Think about the decisions that you're making before you leap into another program.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
That's true.
we've got some good ones. So there's lots of things to look into. And there's also certificates as well. There's also some great certificate programs as well. So, all right. I think we've covered everything. What do you think? All right.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to just say, like, if there are folks that are applying to the Student Affairs Administration program and you have questions, or even other folks that have questions and want to reach out to me, Jennifer, I guess you can give them my information, but I'm happy to just talk more about my experience. So yeah.
Nani, what we'll do is anybody who would like to reach out to Nani, just go ahead and shoot me an email and I will send it to her. And my email is perryja@appstate.edu. And just remember, I'm not the only Jennifer Perry, so I'm not the first one that pops up when you put the name in. So you'll see my profile picture, but just make sure it's Perry J.A. and I will happily connect you. And she's been very helpful. So if she's as helpful to you as she's been to me, it'll be great. Yeah, I had no idea on some things, and she really helped me out. So I appreciate that. And thank you, Angie, for coming as well. I really appreciate it. Nani, thank you so much.
Anytime.
You guys
It was
have
nice
been
meeting you.
a great resource for our students, and I really appreciate it. So thank you.